our first kind of tax planning session. We're kind of going to go through the whole IRS website in general. This is where you can find most of your frequently answered questions on the tax form, but obviously everyone's tax situation is unique. So please speak to your accountant to try to figure out what situation applies for you. I am an accountant, but I'm not your accountant, so I can't speak to your specific situation. But long story short, you'll have your forms and instructions over here for the IRS. The form 1040 is what we consider a personal tax return. And then 1040 senior is when you hit the age of 65, you will have that tax return that you will fill out, and it's got some perks. We'll explain that in a later series, but today we just kind of wanted to go through, and you usually submit your tax return before April 15th, and you can get an extension on your tax return to submit it prior to October 15th. Now, the IRS has one rule. It's for everyone to just file a tax return. The taxpayer has no standing. So most people don't understand this. They struggle with keeping their receipts and they work all year, and at the end of the year they get their W-2, they go to their accountant, and their accountant fills out the return. They've never had a conversation with their accountant on what they've done over the past year. There's no verbal communication, and then the accountant fills out whatever he thinks is the best. The client has to pay a lot of money and they're on their merry way. Or similarly, it's a wrong deduction the accountant takes because he hasn't spoken over the final results with the client. And at the end of the day, who is responsible? Well, it's the taxpayer. So it's very, very important that if you are a taxpayer, you take ownership of your tax return. You go through each line item with your accountant if you need to understand and make sure it makes sense. I'm hoping that I go through this form with you guys and it starts making sense, because we'll go through blank forms on this podcast. We'll talk about different situations that I've come across, and as we kind of grow, hopefully I'll have some guests on this podcast where we could share details on things that they've gone through in their lives, other CPAs, other lawyers. I'm all open to that in the future. Please hit me up on my cell phone. But going back to the form, you'll have your basic contact information up at the top. You put your social security number, and then you put your filing status. Now, you'll have different recommendations, and you'll have single, married filing joint, married filing separate. All these little things are going to impact what's going to be a deduction on your tax return. Kind of sets up the parameters, right? Page 1 sets up the parameters. Whatever dependents you have, tax credits that they'll give you. Now we have the income. So the first line is going to be your income. Then you're going to break it down. It'll have all of your benefits that you'll have from your employer, your IRA, and your tax exempt. Now, what I always like to tell my clients is we want to live in 2A to 6A. That is the meat and potatoes. When we start getting numbers on these forms as accountants, we get excited because this is a client coming to us, putting money in, understanding the basic concept of money doesn't sleep. It grows if you trust the process, and it is a tough process, believe me. So after that, we'll have the total amount. You'll get it subtracted. This is your total income. All those lines from 1 to 8 will add up to line 9. That'll be your total income, and then there'll be adjustments. So this could include expenses that are above the line, certain qualified deductions will be in there. And if you had losses from a certain business, for example, just in my own personal life, we have multiple different income streams. When it rolls up into my personal tax return, it'll be a completely different number on line number 9, and then I'll have a big negative number on 10, and then that'll generate my adjusted gross income. Then after that, you'll have your standard deduction, or if you choose to itemize your deductions, you'll have itemized deductions accordingly. Your standard deduction, I believe it's like 29,700 right now. The next part is going to be the tax and the tax credits. Now, if you work on a W-2, most of you know this is the tax that you guys pay. Show up here, child care tax credits, all of that item, self-employment tax, whatever taxes you are paying, those will be on 16 to 24 taxes and those credits. It's between you and the government. And then the last portion is going to be your payments. So it's going to be like the income tax withheld from the W-2. Most of this is your line item number 2, form 1099, whatever that. If you had withholdings, like let's say you set up withhold 10% of my paycheck from my 1099, that'll show up here. And the next part you'll have is your earned income credit. Those are the people that are like 50,000 and below. Those qualify for those. And your total payments. This is the payments that you owe. Now, if you've overpaid on your taxes, meaning the taxes withheld are greater than your total payments, then you'll get a refund. And most people, they when they get a W-2, they earn money, and the government holds a portion of their money in taxes, and at the end of the year they go and claim back that money for a refund. That is the game, people, and if you keep track of all of the dollars that you spend as best as possible, you should be able to accomplish a good tax bracket for yourself and have like good financial planning, because the taxes are key. They're the literal key that helps you get loans from a bank, helps someone update and understand your financial position. That speaks the language, because there'll be tons of financial advisors and accountants that hopefully you guys come across, similarly on YouTube or whatever, that talk about this. But today I just want to kind of go through my 2 cents of how to file a tax return. Mainly just go over the 1040. Filing is a different beast in itself, where you have paper filing and e-filing. E-filing is through a software. It's generally free software if you're under a certain threshold of income, or you pay for it, and it's like QuickBooks, Intuit, TaxAct. I recommend TaxAct. I'm not sponsored by TaxAct, but I use them in my daily life and I love them. Um, yeah. I hope that this was a good overview of the Form 1040, and I hope that for all of my people that are watching, drop me like a like or a comment if you thought this was helpful. Um, yeah, well, until next time, thanks for watching the D&V Accounting channel. I'm Vish, and we out.